So name and age.
John Graham Boulton, 93 years old.
So John, I want to hear about how you got into logging. How'd you end up in Quilcene, Washington?
Well, I was born and raised in Seattle, and in 1944, my dad bought a farm over in Leland Valley, and I was in high school at the time, at Roosevelt High School. And then when I got out of high school, I got drafted right away into the World War II draft.
Mm-hmm.
The war was over, but the draft was still going. So I took basic training at Fort Lewis, and then they decided some of us could go to Signal Corps school. So they sent us back to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, to Signal Corps school. And back there, it was right on the Atlantic Ocean, about 50 miles south of New York City,
Mm-hmm.
at Red Bank, New Jersey. And they took a picture of the company, and in doing that, the commander read all the names of the people in the picture. And when he came to a picture of, and it said Dick Gasfield, Port Townsend, I thought, well, I should know that guy. I don't know if you know Dick Gasfield.
Mm-mm.
He was postmaster in Port Townsend for all of his working life.
Okay.
And he's 4 days older than I am. He lives at Adelmo Beach now.
Huh.
So anyway, then orders came that these guys probably aren't going to be in the Army long enough to do us any good at Signal Corps school. So we'll send them overseas. So they sent us by what they call a delay en route. So we got to go home and then down to California to go overseas on a troop ship.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how they moved people then. They didn't fly them like they do now. And so that happened, and we went, we got on the biggest ship called the Admiral Caps in San Francisco Bay. And they worked on the boat out in the bay for 4 days while they got it ready to run across the ocean. And we were headed to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Korean War hadn't started, but they weren't exactly friendly up there on the 38th parallel, or wherever the parallel was going to be. So we went from San Francisco to Honolulu and got a pass off the ship in Honolulu, and then from there we went to Yokohama, and I was seasick for 8 days.
Oh gosh.
I'd never make a sailor, because at least not then.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily I didn't have to do KP duty again till I got to Yokohama, and then we got in quiet water. Then we went off the coast of China. At that time, Chiang Kai-shek was still fighting with Mao, and we had some nurses that they were going to drop off there.
Mm-hmm.
But you couldn't see the shore because we were so far out, very shallow. So anyway, we did that, and then we went north up to Yeongdeung-po, Korea. And then we unloaded out of the troop ship into a LST. Normally hauls tanks, but in this case, you put your barracks bag on the floor and you sat on it,
Oh.
upright. So there was a row here and a row here, and I don't know, there was 5,000 guys on the ship.
Oh wow.
So there probably was maybe 1,000 in that LST at one time.
Wow.
And then when they dropped us off, they didn't have us into dry shore, and it was chunks of ice floating around in the salt water when they dropped us out of it. And then we went to a big old silk mill that they had there that they turned into a relocation center for the Army.
Mm-hmm.
After we were there for a couple of days, we took a railroad train down to Daegu, Korea. And that's where we were. That was our destination. We were in 6th Division headquarters in Daegu. And we hadn't had a lot of training, but we were called telephone operators.
Hmm.
And we did have some telephone stuff down there.
Mm-hmm.
So we were down there for 6 weeks, assigned to the company. When orders came from Washington, all draftees would be discharged.
Okay.
Well, you could re-enlist after 6 months. You knew you were going to get out in a year. But a bunch of us didn't bother to. And so we were still draftees, but we'd only been in for 13 months. But anyway, they shipped us home. And with my terminal leave time, I had 14 months in the U.S. Army.
Really?
Yeah. Gave me a GI Bill permit, prerogatives, and that worked quite well, because when I got back to Seattle, I decided to go to school. I had never liked school particularly well anyway. But a girlfriend I had in high school was going to Washington State. And since we had the farm here, and I'd been farming on summers when I was still in high school, I decided I'd be a farmer. So I'd go to school for it. So that's what I did. I went to Washington State for a year. The girlfriend thing fell through, but I started another year, the second year, and by that time, we had a herd of milk cows at the farm. Seemed to be the only thing you could make any money out of there at that time. This was in 1947. And my cousin, who was milking the cows, had bursitis, so they needed somebody to milk the cows, so that fell on me. So at Thanksgiving time, I came back from Washington State, and I milked cows through August that year, the following year. And then they went back, somebody else got milking them then, and I went back to school for another year. And then I got out of WSU, or WSC as it was called at that time, in June of 50, 1950. And I came back, and that's when I was at the farm permanently after that.
Okay.
So I milked cows there at the farm for 15 years, and that was going no place. We were either going to have to milk a lot more cows, or find something else to do with it, or sell the outfit. So, meanwhile, I was putting up hay at what now is called the Faith Farm.
Okay.
At that time, that whole thing was drained, and and you could cut hay clear to the Leland Drain Ditch, or Leland Creek.
Oh, wow.
And now you can't even walk out there, it's so wet. It's so plugged up with canary grass and beaver dams. So anyway, I was putting up hay there, and a guy named Joe Stigney from Quilcene came by and wanted to know if I wanted to haul his logs. He knew I had a flatbed truck, and I had built some bunks for the truck so I could haul a few logs off the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, sure. So he was logging on East Quil Road, just on the left-hand side, past the log dump. And so I hauled his logs from there, and then we bought a Forest Service sale going up Mount Walker right away. And what they were doing was cutting all the corners off of the road so people could see further around the corners.
Oh, okay. Sight distance logging. Okay.
And we hauled all those logs to John Andrews at Discovery Bay on the old flatbed. And that worked pretty good. We made pretty good money at that. They would frequently come and tell us that we hadn't cut enough, but it was all ribboned. And then they'd ribbon some more for us. We had to pay for them at the rate we were paying, but that was fine because the rate we were paying was one we could live with. So anyway, we got finished with that job, and then Joe and I went over on West Valley Road on a piece of ground that belonged to his sister. And we're logging there when Joe bought his own truck and said he didn't need me anymore. So be it. Didn't matter that I used a bunch of my equipment there, but anyway, that split Joe and I up. So I just went back to the farm, of course, and I wasn't doing a whole lot when Lester West, who lived up behind the farm and was a logger like Joe, asked me if I could haul his little cat into the beach at Port Townsend, that the port wanted the beach cleared. And so I said, sure. At that time, Julian Owen from Quilcene was the port commissioner. And but before I got hauled in there, he told us, well, I can't just let you do the job. You're going to have to bid it. Well, neither one of us had ever bid anything to speak of. We underbid it so bad, it's a wonder we made anything. And we got all, well, we thought we were going to sell the logs to pulpwood, but they had Toritos in them. And because of the Torito holes, made holes in the paper, they couldn't use them, so we just had to burn them.
Wow.
Which we did, and that worked all right. But up in the north corner of what now is the port, near where the motels are, there was a stretch of bay in there that had about 18 to 2 feet of chips that had been blowing off the mill barges for years. And we tried to burn those, and you could no more burn those wet chips than you could fly.
Wow.
So we didn't know what we were going to do. Went to Julian and told him what our problem was. He says, never mind, we'll just pump it with the sand. So that's how they cleared the boat in at Port Townsend after we cleared the beach. They pumped all the sand between the beachhead and Sims Way was a couple of ponds.
Okay.
And they filled those in, of course. And then they took even part of that and made it into the port. And then up there where those ponds are, next to Sims Way, is where they store boats to work on and so forth. So it was the beginning of the port now is a very important part of Port Townsend, even though there's some people who would like to see it gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's gonna leave. And so that's how that came to being. Well, Lester and I worked together. Oh, we also, the same day we got the bid to do the beach, we bid a timber sale at Port Ludlow that was for over 600,000 feet of thinning
Hmm.
in 90-year-old fir.
Really?
Really nice stuff. I don't know why they wanted to thin it, but that was, they were gonna thin it. So we only ended up with one bidder other than us, and that was Crown Zellerback. They had loggers at the time. And we outbid them pretty easily. They didn't really work at it too hard. They got all the pulp off of it anyway. And most of the logs went to Pope and Talbot at Port Ludlow. We bought a 1955 International 3-axle log truck, and we were short logging. And when we got that section done, we bid another 100 acres north of it in relatively the same kind of timber, not quite as big. And we did that one. And at the time we were doing those, we also did a lot of little private jobs, because we always had that to go back on. So we had something to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, when we got those jobs done, and we had done a couple other private jobs, we had a big job coming up with a guy there at Port Hadlock, going back up the hill from Skunk Island.
Okay. Is that Skunk Island? Is that what they call Marrowstone, or is that
No,
a different?
That's that little island in the bay there as you go around from,
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
there nobody lives on it.
Mm-hmm.
And a great place to go crabbing. You can do it in your bib overalls, or bib
Yeah.
waders. Anyway, we had that coming up, plus by then we were, one day a Pope guy stopped me and wanted to know if I wanted to log for them. And so we said, sure. And so we had a contract. What they wanted to log was 80 acres across from the farm, across 101. But they had to go through a piece of the farm to get to the 80 acres.
Mm.
So anyway, we got that job to do. And we logged for Pope for about 6 years or so. Close. 5 anyway. And then we decided we'd incorporate, because Lester and I were having some problems with getting along. And figured if we incorporated, we could separate our jobs and not get in each other's hair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the process of forming the corporation, I said, well, because Les didn't have any cows to milk, and I didn't have any cows to milk, but I had beef that I was running, and so I had things to do at the farm. And so I said, well, why don't you take 6 days wages and I'll take 5 each week. Well, he says, suppose I want to work on 7 days a week. Oh, I said, Les, we were in decent financial shape, so I said, let's just bunch it. I said, then we don't have to worry about it. So we split the equipment and split the bank account, and we each went our own way, but he kept the timber at Hadlock, and I got the Pope and Talbot contract, which was kind of the way I wanted it to go anyway. He made more money on what he was doing, but mine was gonna be more longevity. And at that time, Pope was a pretty decent company to deal with. And I eventually got to know all of the local hierarchy at Pope. And there was about 5 or 6 of us contractors that they kept busy for most of the year running that. It wasn't until they closed the mill down at Fort Gamble that things got different.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became a totally different company. And they were not interested in their contractors at all. And so by then it was getting to the point where I probably was needing to retire anyway. I was kind of hoping to sell the outfit to my employees and let them pay me off working for Pope. Pope was having none of that. So I just had to let employees go and peddle the equipment, some of which I still got.
Yeah. What year was that you sold off the equipment?
I think it might have been '09.
Okay.
No, that wasn't '09. It was before that. I'm not exactly sure.
So I graduated high school in '04, and I remember there still being, I'm pretty sure you had a cat log loader or two, didn't you?
Yeah, I had 2 of them.
Yeah, so that was about '05 or so maybe '06, '07.
It was in that neighborhood.
How many employees did you have at the height of your company?
Well, after I got into it just for myself, I invited my son John and Pat Yar to join me.
Mm-hmm.
Pat was my son-in-law. And so they became Boulton and Yar logging. And then we bought a tower and our first we already had a shovel, and I think I'd already bought feller bunchers too. But at any rate, we ended up with a tower, and then, oh yeah, we started logging for Ben Levine at Gardner. Ben was buying Forest Service sales and turning them over to Pat, John to log them, and I was just chasing parts and doing that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Until the spotted owl surfaced.
Mm-hmm.
And that shut the Forest Service down entirely. And Ben couldn't buy any more sales. They didn't put any more up. And they weren't putting any up so anybody could buy them.
Okay.
The few that were left were ones that were too tough for us to log. I think we even did one of those that we hoped we wouldn't get because we'd have lost our butt on it. So anyway, we just went back to skitter logging. And then John went to work for his father-in-law, chipping pulpwood to go to the mills. And they were located down in Johns Prairie. And Pat worked with me for a while, and then he quit and went to work for Seton.
Hmm.
Janice was already working for Seton.
Okay.
She was their head bookkeeper. And then John got killed. He was cleaning chip dirt between the skid logs down there where they were working the chipper. And he had a machine that chipped up the chunks and delivered them in a pile and the dirt in another pile. And somehow it got jammed. When John reached in to unjam it, he didn't shut it off.
Hmm.
And it grabbed him and killed him. Wasn't until some guys heard this thing running and went and examined it, and there he was. I never did see him again. Didn't see him then. And so John was gone. And it was after that then that Pat bought a self-loader from young Woodley.
Hmm.
Woodleys were still hauling logs, or at least the kid was.
And they're from Chimacum Hadlock area, right?
They built that store there at the corner.
Ah,
That building, Earl built that as a truck shop.
that's over there where the Chevron station is now?
Yeah.
Okay. So that used to be where they had their trucks at before the
Well,
gas station became what it is now.
Yeah. Earl built that as a truck shop.
Okay.
Well, then Earl got in a fight with one of the Crown Zarback guys, and they were hauling chips. Was it chips? No. Crown Zarback still had their thing going. They're logging. They
Mhm.
still had loggers logging. And Woodley was, all those guys would do was just deck them roadside, and Woodley'd come along with a self-loader, or a loader on, a mobile loader, and load them onto their trucks and haul them.
Oh, okay.
Well, he was arguing about price, and they got in a battle, and he decked the guy from, which did not,
Didn't help things out?
he didn't have a job anymore.
Wow.
So he hauled logs around the neighborhood for a while until he went out of business there. And then young Woodley, Woody, his name's Earl too, I think. He had this, I think it was a Kenworth with a self-loader that Pat bought.
Okay.
And Pat used that for a while, and then he bought a new one, traded it off. And then he bought another one, so he had two trucks for a little while, but trying to keep the two trucks going was more trouble than he wanted, so he just got rid of the one, and that way he was pretty, do pretty much what he wanted. He had wood to haul, he could haul it if there wasn't any. He took over the farm from me.
Yeah.
And he had a bunch of cows there.
Hmm.
Nice herd of Angus. And it was always figured that he and Janice would buy the farm from the rest of the heirs. But then when Michael Pierce came through, I think that was '09, in March, and he had rented one of the houses from me, because I still had 2 houses that I collected rent from on the farm. One of them down there by the barn, that, I can't think of the girl's name now. Her dad is school teacher at Chimicum. Longtime resident, born here. You probably know him. Might have had him for class.
Yeah, you never know.
I can't think of their name.
I can't either. I'm drawing up a blank. But she lived down in the house, you're saying?
Huh?
That gal lived in the house, the one that
She rented it from me.
Okay.
And I did it partly because her dad had worked for me in the woods
Okay.
before he got his teacher's certificate and went to teach in school.
Really? I can't think of who that is now.
Well, there's another logger over there, I think it's related to him.
Not Bishop's.
No, it's not Bishop. Anyway,
She was renting the house, and then you were
and I wanted
talking.
to know if her boyfriend could come live with
Oh.
her. And I said, well, I don't care, as long as you take care of the yard and the house, like you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I said, that's all, I don't mind. So anyway, he was there for a few months when he was going to school at Peninsula, and they decided to move up to closer to Port Angeles, which they did. And he got paid money to go to school, but it didn't always come when he needed a fix.
Mm-hmm.
So he came down there, because Pat and Janice both knew him, he knew them, and he thought that Pat would have some money. And I don't know how he thought he was going to get it. All kinds of rumors were swirling around that Pat owed him money. Well, I don't think so. Pat never owed anybody any money. Anyway, he went to Henry's Hardware in Port Townsend and asked them if they had guns. And they said, yeah, they had guns. They were locked up in a cabinet. They were pellet guns, albeit guns. So they went back there and got one out. And she gave him the box with the gun in it. He said, yeah, that'd do. So they started to or she said, well, I've got to go back to the register. Nobody else is on duty right now. And so he said, well, I've got to go pick up some more stuff. And so he took the gun with him, and pretty soon he shows up at the desk with the box, and she checks him out. Well, the box is strapped to his body, but the box is empty. She doesn't know that. And right the time it took to drive from Henry's to the farm fits the fire at the farm right to the
Mm-hmm.
when it was started. Guys over on the highway saw it and wondered whether it was somebody burning stuff or if it was not under control. And finally, somebody drove over there and they hammered on the doors. Nobody was home. Or they thought there wasn't. And the house was on fire. And of course, they called the fire departments. And the fire departments, every one of them was out there, even from Port Townsend.
Oh, wow.
Chimicum, Port Townsend, Quilcene, and I think Chimicum was there. There was at least 4 or 5 fire departments were ended up there. And they right off the bat treated it as an arson fire. Well, Pat had 2 late model Ford pickups, and one of them wasn't there.
Mm.
But if I'd have thought about it, I knew it was in the barn with a load of hay on it, but it was in there and nobody saw it. So we thought him and Janice were gone someplace with that pickup.
Oh.
And her little car was there. Actually, it got burned in the fire because it was parked close to the house where he started the fire in the carport. So anyway, the fire department finally got the fire out, and they were careful not to destroy anything with high pressure hoses. They used lots of water and spray. And when it cooled down, then one of them crawled in pitch dark in the early morning in on the floor until they ran into a person and then two persons. And he crawled back out, and that was it for that day. They were both dead, of course, and couldn't be any other way. Now, the gun that killed him was one that Pat owned. So somehow, and he kept it by the sliding door because he had his cows calving out there in front of the house. And if the cows got too friendly, he'd take a few shots at them. And so we think he got access with the pellet gun, and then he got that one, and it apparently was loaded. We found bullets for that gun in the floor of the house, but never did ever find the gun. And they went up and down the road into both lakes, and they're trying to find a gun in the blackberries along the road. You know how that would work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we never found the gun. Meanwhile, the same length of time it took for him to leave there and get to Quilcene was the time that they got him on camera at the U.S. Bank trying to draw money on their credit card.
Oh, gee.
So he did get the credit card, either before or after he shot him, but he got it, the bank card. And it wasn't until the bank went through their film, they discovered that guy in there. When they turned that over to the sheriff's department, they immediately knew who it was. And that's how we caught him. Otherwise, we had a memorial at the parade grounds, and there was over 100 log trucks and dump trucks were at that memorial, and at least 800 people were there.
Wow.
The biggest building only housed about a little over half, and the rest of them were all outside.
Wow.
There was a lot of people there for Pat and Janice. And so we ended up trading off a couple of very productive people for a piece of shit. So anyway, they had a trial in Port Townsend. And he ended up with 114 years. Family knew we'd never get a death sentence anyway. In this state. So of course that was appealed. And in the appeal they said, well, the judge or the prosecutor was too graphic. I thought that's what prosecutors did. Also, they claimed the sheriffs didn't read him his rights as soon as they should have.
Oh, gee.
So we're going to turn the guy loose for a couple of things like that. So he never got turned loose, but we had to have another trial. And they had another trial in Port Townsend. And that went along almost to the end of it, when one of the women in the jury her husband flies to Seattle almost every day. And she works, so they leave their child with her parents in Quilcene. But they live in Port Townsend.
Oh.
So they're in Quilcene picking up their child, and when they drive back, he has the same argument I do here as to whether it's quicker to go 101 or Chimacum. And the distance is probably less than a mile, if it's that much, if either way you go.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's faster to go 101 than it is to go the other way. Doesn't matter, but anyway, they decided to go 101. And when they went through the farm, they saw this big guy on the highway. And she thought that could have been Michael Pierce. And she was reading about it. No, she was hearing about it on the jury. So she reported it to the jury foreman, who reported it to the prosecutor. And so, as far as I can see, they should have just appointed, because they had extra jurors that they carry just for that kind of situation. But no, they threw the whole thing out.
Wow.
Davies was too good at his job, I guess.
Wow. So what was the end result from all of that? He got tried
so
and
then we have
convicted?
another trial, but now it has to be in Kitsap County.
Oh, I remember hearing about that. Okay.
So then we have it right up, almost to the end again, and Davies comes to the, up, and he says to the judge, Michael didn't get his medications for 3 days. Well, Kitsap County contracts medications for prisoners to some contractor that provides them, and they hadn't provided them.
Oh.
And the judge we're dealing with happens to be a lady, not that it matter, and she's being very careful, so she doesn't want to screw anything up. So she throws it out.
Oh, wow.
And declares a mistrial. So then we have a fourth trial. That one finally went all the way through. He got almost the same time he got on the first one.
Wow.
And so unless Jay Inslee and a few more of our friends decide to let all these guys out of jail, he's in there for the rest of his life.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad to hear he's locked up and not going to do anybody any more harm out here.
It's why should we have to pay for him? And he killed two very productive people.
That's a shame.
And I don't have any problem with the death penalty if it's proven beyond doubt
Mm-hmm.
that apparently there's been some cases where people went to prison and they didn't do it, but there wasn't any doubt in this one.
Yeah.
Pierce
Yeah.
never did ever take the stand.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that ended that section of the. So then I got the farm back because we had never transferred it.
Mm.
And so I rented the farm to Roger Short. And Roger rented it a couple of years. And then he didn't want it anymore because he was doing land over in the other valley. And so Finn River and who's the other guy on the island? Two of them that now rent that.
Oh, Red Dog or?
No, it's a guy that was working at the port.
Oh, huh.
And then he bought a ship, went to Alaska for a couple of years, and then came back, sold the ship, went back to farming. And
So now they're running that farm.
the one that Short had, that's out, well, that belonged to Shaw. One Griff Short had.
Oh, you talking about Gray Fox Farms? They're out there in the valley, off of Beaver Valley there.
No, this is in north of Shorts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't even think of what that one would be. I'm drawing a blank on that.
On the other side would be, what's her name that has, Angus, purebred Angus for sale. I knew her dad too. The guy that was chief of the fire department for a long time, retired not too long ago. Chuck Boggs.
Okay.
If you're on the opposite side of the creek from the Boggs, you're on part of that property I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about now. Yep.
And
Okay.
Roger used to, at his own expense, do all that drainage on Chimicum Creek.
Wow.
From down from the school or wherever he started, all the way up through his place. Well, then that guy just north of the field we're talking about, he wouldn't let him go through his property. Guy's a real jerk. And now he's dead, but his wife won't let Roger go through it either.
Really?
They've even thought about doing a thing where it's a right of way,
Okay.
but that's the reason Roger's place has been so flooded here lately, is because that didn't get done.
Oh, I see.
I'm not sure whether Roger is gonna go back doing it again.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what ended that.
Huh. And John, I'm kind of curious, when you got off to like contracting for Pope, doing logging, did you mainly do ground-based logging? Like have?
Yeah, we didn't have the tower anymore.
Okay. So were you skidder logging, or did you just have the shovels? Okay.
And then we still did some for Pope, but not as much.
Okay.
And I did some for other people.
Yeah, just private
Yeah.
private jobs. How long did you run the tower for, you and Pat?
Well, up until the spotted owl.
Okay. So you did it for quite a few years then.
Well, not too long, but a while.
Okay.
2 or 3 years anyway,
Okay.
I think.
But
And then the tower sat in front of the shop at the farm for several months, and Pat's dad gave us enough money to pay it off.
okay.
Then we owed him.
Yeah.
And finally, a guy out of Bellingham bought it.
Okay.
And all we got was what we owed on it, so
Yeah.
we lost a lot of equity in the
Oh
equipment.
wow. Okay.
And then, before I got out of the business, then I went to using the multiple head delimiters.
Oh, so you were using a processing head on the end of a tracked shovel?
Right?
Okay.
And then we bought another shovel to load with. So we had 2 325s.
Okay.
One I bought new and one I bought used.
Yeah.
The new one cost me, I think it was $305,000.
Yeah. Okay.
And that didn't include, because I didn't have to pay sales tax on it.
Oh yeah.
The other one, I think I paid $150,000 for the used one.
What'd you use for a skidder?
We had a Caterpillar, we had a D4 for a while, And then tracks were gonna cost more than the tractor was worth to put on it, so we went to a 518.
Okay. Huh. Who, out of all the guys that worked on your crew, who do you think the biggest character was that worked for you? Didn't Richard Hughes work for you and Calvin Lonsdalen and?
Well, Calvin did for a long time. He was a truck driver for a brief time, and then he went in the loader.
Yeah.
He worked for me about 10 years. Dave from Port Angeles, and I can't think of his last name, he drove truck for me for about 10 years. And Richard Hughes, I think he left, he left and went with Lester West when we parted company.
Okay.
And who else? Kenny Ackerman was running the tower,
Yeah.
and I wanted to keep Kenny on, but anyway, he didn't stay.
Yeah.
He didn't want to run skidder, and I'm not sure. Oh, I had a loader operator that lived near there, Chimacum School there. I can't think of his name, but he'd been with me quite a while,
Okay.
so I couldn't just let him go to
Yeah.
put Kenny on it.
Yeah.
And
And you had Diet and Mark Broderson working.
that was in the tower.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did,
And I sold processor, deliver processor to Diet.
oh, really?
Yeah. One that
Oh.
was on the ground that the loader dragged the,
Oh, the Han or CTR?
well, it was CTR.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I bought a brand new CTR. That was the best machine I ever owned.
I've ran one of them before. They're pretty handy. Yeah.
And after going to the multiple processor with all the sensors and stuff, that CTR was the cheapest machine. I took the CTR because you had to, long butts all had to be clean. You couldn't have cut it off and leave a flute.
Yeah.
And so if we had long butts that were over whatever the CTR bar would handle, we'd have to cut them by hand.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had a guy down on the Columbia River that does bars make me a long bar, and we put that in it. And that long bar would cut anything you could drag through it.
Oh, perfect.
And then I thought I wanted to go with a fancy thing.
Yeah. So, when you, let's see here, when you all were running the tower and you had Diet and Mark working for you, and Mike McCone worked for you for a while too, didn't he?
Yeah, was it Mike? Could have been. Or his brother. One of the McCones worked for us.
Okay. Did Bud Smith, Buddy Jr. work for you?
Yeah.
And what was he doing for you?
I think he was running Skidder. Was it Skidder? What did Buddy Smith do?
I couldn't remember. I've bits and pieces I've heard over the years, but did he work as like a choker setter or something at one point for you, or?
Well, that would have just been in the tower setting, because
Okay.
after the tower we went to grapple skidders, so
Oh, okay.
we didn't need choker setters.
Yeah.
And I know the name Buddy Smith.
Yeah.
I can even kind of picture him, but
Yeah.
I don't remember
Now, John,
Carl-
probably
Carl-
about 2000.
Carl Lopman worked for me for a long time.
Is that Mark's dad or brother? Mark Lopman had the. He's got a log truck now.
This must be his uncle, maybe.
Okay. I'm thinking Mark must be mid 50s, mid late
Yeah.
50s.
Wouldn't be Carl's. Carl had the store at Beaver Valley,
Okay.
and he contracted to me to skid logs.
Oh, really?
So he had the skidders, but I had the job.
Okay.
And then, what's his name? Worked for Carl. Was that Buddy Smith?
Oh, yeah, it's not a big deal.
Who was it that dug the pond over there to grow potatoes? Going up Center Road. Up on, what do they call it? Something Lake. It's dried up, but
I'm drawing a blank on that.
you come up from the Beaver Valley store, up Center Road, or not Center, but up, what's that road?
Larson Lake.
Larson Lake Road. Yeah, Larson Lake.
Okay.
This guy was married to a Larson,
Really?
whose dad or uncle or somebody had dug that out down there. It was a lake, and they dug it out to grow potatoes in it.
Really? Gosh, I've never heard that one before. Although I'm a younger guy, so there's a lot of things that this is way before my time. Who was that years ago did that tower piece right above your farm out there, kind of on the south end of the field, and they left that big old growth snag out in the middle of the unit? You remember who that was that logged that? They had a little green yarder, I think.
Probably was Mike Hanley.
Really? Isn't that something? Seems like it would have been, and I don't remember when Mike and his brother
Was
were.
it on the north end of the farm?
No, it was down on the Snow Creek end of the farm.
That'd be the north.
Is that it? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it was on the north end of the farm then, and
Because that tree held our antenna for our radio system.
really? No kidding. And this would have been probably 07, 08,
Yeah.
I guess, when that was logged. So you're thinking that was Mike Hanley then?
Yeah, because Mike, I'm pretty sure, logged that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Out of, when you were doing the ground-based side, and then you and Pat had the tower, was it a lot like, was it headache-free for the most part, running a ground-based side over the tower, or did you enjoy one or the other? Or?
Yeah, we pretty much sorted them out to where they didn't interfere with each other. The ground-based side was just a smaller operation,
Yeah.
but they were able to collect stuff around where you didn't want to have to pull cable,
Yeah.
and so it worked out pretty well. John ran the feller buncher, and then when we had the tower, he ran the Husky loader I've got.
Okay. That truck-mounted one? Yeah.
I had it mounted on I traded it for, a guy had that Husky loader on a Ford truck, single axle,
Okay.
and he wanted a track machine. And so I had this
Oh.
feller buncher draught.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I built a loading boom for it.
Oh, really?
And so he was in the rockery business, wanted something he could move around and place rocks.
Really?
So we made a straight across trade.
Oh, no kidding.
And, but with that old Ford, which was just a piece of crap, the loader was okay,
Yeah.
but the Ford single axle, when you drove it down the road, your heart was right up in your throat. So then I leased it to Wally Peterson to use.
Okay.
They turned it over on its side. And so then Wally put another piece of shit under it.
Is that the one that's under it now?
No.
Oh, okay.
Wally bent both cylinders in it.
Oh,
main
wow.
boom, and then just gave it back to me. No, I didn't do that. So I had to repair them. And so eventually I wanted to put it on a decent truck. So the short logger that I bought, the 55 International, and I've gone through all the brakes on it. So it's got all new brakes on that truck, and the loader works good. Matter of fact, I bent a cylinder here the other day, and King fixed that for me. It was not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I get through with that firewood, I'll probably put it up for sale.
Yeah, okay.
And because it works good, I think some small operator would probably like to have it.
Yeah, I bet so. So, John, I'm kind of curious, out of all those guys that you've had working for you over the years, who would you say was the biggest character out of all of them?
Character?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Rich Mackey was a great welder. I know that. And then his cousin, another Mackey, was a druggie. And when I found that out, it was in December when I'd issued everybody bonuses.
Uh-huh.
And with the bonus, but I had just done it. When I found out he was dealing drugs, I canceled his.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Fired him.
Okay.
So later on he got back at me because our shop truck on the job got broken into and a cutoff saw stolen and some other stuff.
Okay.
That was another Mackey, and then there was Rod Mackey, who was forester for Pope, and he and I remained good friends.
Huh. What, out of all the people that you worked for logging over the years, doing contracting jobs for, who would you say the best outfit was to work for, the best landowner?
Well, Pope was up until
They sold the
they
mill.
got rid of the mill.
Okay.
And they had to keep that mill going, so they kept us going.
Mm-hmm.
And while you didn't make a lot of money, it means you made enough that you could make a profit and pay for your equipment.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anybody else around the neighborhood with enough timber to.
So they tried to keep you guys happy and keep work flowing to you while they had the mill, but as soon as they shut the mill down, they kind of let that go to the wayside some.
Well, the family didn't want to. A sawmill like that needs to be major rebuilds
Yeah.
every 10 or 15 years, just because the technical stuff
Yeah.
becomes better and faster, and they just decided they didn't want to do another one.
Oh, okay.
I don't know at that time whether they had an idea what to do with that property down there. They've never done much with it.
Yeah.
I haven't been by there in haven't looked at it in a while, so I'm not sure whether it has anything. They've had a few things going, but nothing that very straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. Now, does anything come to mind over the years that you've had happen when you're working out in the woods that exciting stuff or narrow escape kind of a thing, where you had a
Well,
kind of a frightening experience?
we had one choker setter just on the piece north of the farm, and they set a choker behind the choker skidder, and then didn't get out of the way far enough. It caught a little stump, swung around sideways, and hit him right across the face.
Oh no!
And he never worked after that.
Wow.
I think he's still alive, but it really did a number on him.
Wow.
Broke his face all up. And
Really?
teeth. And just a case of their
Yeah.
own fault.
Yeah.
They should have been out of the way.
Not clearing out far enough.
Yeah.
How about you? Have you personally had any frightening?
Oh yeah. They had a tree dragged top first into a stump,
Oh no.
and of course they couldn't pull it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out there with my saw to buck one of the tops off. The skidder was gone to do other stuff. And when I bucked that one top off, the tree rolled right over on top of my saw, and jammed it down on my legs.
Oh. How'd you get out of that one?
A lot of stitches.
Oh gosh, I bet. Oh, good thing you made it out of that all right.
It didn't get hooked onto my penis, or I'd have been
You'd be in tough
real
shape.
trouble.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Just
Huh.
mainly below that, and my knees.
So right now, you got any projects going? Are you doing any land clearing or anything like that, John?
Well, Ruth got so she wasn't mobile anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And her doctor told me I was gonna have to put her into a rest home. And so 1 month in Kai-Tai is $10,000. And then we took her to Brennan, and that was $7,000. So that saved some, but then she didn't last very long.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I thought I was gonna have to come up with some money, and he's around the corner there where you stopped. Around the corner, when you came out,
It's all sort of loose.
you know where you stopped, John?
Yeah.
Well, the guy that sold that to Boylan's kept 5,500 of an acre with the driveway.
Maybe that would be.
Well, back when they did that, maybe you could do something with
Mm-hmm.
5,500, but you can't now. So
Which way you go?
I thought, well, we own on 2 sides of him. I can take part of that and go up to the property line and make about 3 acres out of it. And then it'll be a buildable site.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. Then I also did the septic prep work, so that's done. And now I've got some firewood to get moved off of there.
Okay.
I'm having some equipment problems. Otherwise, well, the equipment started up today, but it was out of hydraulic oil. And then it wasn't running real smooth, so I
Yeah.
got a few things to do there.
Okay.
And now she bought a 40-foot steel box that I put up there for her,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and I did that at my own expense.
Yeah.
And I figured we were gonna build the driveway for her. Well, now, her dad went back to someplace in the east, so she's decided not to keep it.
Oh, okay.
So she's got it put up for sale again,
Yeah.
and I still got my stuff up there. if somebody wants to buy it, still gotta have a decent driveway put in,
Yeah.
and it's gotta have some drainage put in. And I've got all the equipment to do it, albeit I don't have to hire somebody to do it for me. Well, I can sit on some of the equipment, but at any rate, it's all right there to do, including this loader that will burn the big pile of stumps and brush and get that off of there. And then she's gonna have some leveling out and some more crushed rock hauled, or whoever buys it.
Yeah.
And they probably should take a few more trees down up above, because up there where the machine is where I would think they would build a house.
Mm.
But we'll see,
Yeah. Okay.
and I'm trying my best to get my part of it done and
Yeah.
out of there. But there's not much they can do about it, because they can't get up there anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, John, I
So at
really.
any rate, she sold it,
Oh, I see.
and that was money I was gonna use to pay for Ruth's keep,
Mm-hmm.
as long as it would last.
Yeah.
And I made a little money on it. But now Ruth's gone, and the girl that bought it now has got it up for sale again, albeit she wants more than I got for it.
Yeah. Okay.
But then she's got that steel box she's included in the price, so they don't come cheap.
Yeah.
I bought one up here too.
Huh. Well, shoot. Well, John, I really appreciate you giving me some of your time.
Oh, well, that's what I do best.
Well, you have a fine evening.